So, picture a highway, like any major interstate right now.
Okay, yeah, always packed.
Right, packed with those massive 18-wheeler transport trucks. And, they look completely stuffed to the brim, don't they?
Oh, totally. Heavy, lumbering down the road, looking totally full.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you were to, I don't know, somehow look inside them with X-ray vision, you would see something staggering. Because according to a massive survey of weigh and motion scales, 91% of those heavily loaded trucks,
91%.
yeah, 91% are actually driving around partially empty.
That is wild.
Right, they are literally hauling thousands of pounds of empty air down the freeway. And, I mean, we aren't just talking about a little bit of wasted space here. We're talking about millions of dollars bleeding out of supply chains and, well, thousands of unnecessary tons of carbon just being pumped right into the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's a massive, massive hidden inefficiency.
It really is. So today, we are cracking open what we're going to call the weight puzzle of logistics. We've got a stack of logistics case studies, some really interesting operations articles from Provision Eye, and hard data on highway weight regulation.
All to figure out how this happens, right?
Exactly. Our mission today for this deep dive is to see how replacing human guesswork with advanced AI is completely rewiring how the physical world gets shipped. We're looking specifically at a huge transformation at Riviana Foods. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, so to understand why 91% of those trucks are driving around with empty air, we really have to look at the daily friction at a company like Riviana Foods. They're America's largest rice producer, by the way.
Right. Huge operation.
Massive. They operate this giant facility out of Memphis, Tennessee, and from there alone, they ship over 10,000 truckloads a year.
10,000. Wow.
Yeah, but here's the catch. They aren't just loading one uniform, predictable product. They have a really highly variable, mixed-weight portfolio.
Right.
So like on one side of the warehouse, you've got pallets stacked high with these lightweight, single-serve, microwavable rice cups.
Okay. Yeah.
And then on the other side, you have pallets loaded down with incredibly dense, heavy, 20-pound family-sized bags of rice.
I see. So the puzzle basically begins before the forklift even turns on.
Exactly, because a truck trailer isn't, it's not a magic infinite box. It's a physical space with two very strict constraints.
Right.
You've got the volume inside, they call that the cube, and then you have the physical weight that the truck's axles can legally carry down the highway.
So at Riviana, if the loaders just start throwing those heavy 20-pound bags in first, they're going to hit that legal weight limit way before the physical space inside the trailer is actually full.
Right. The industry term for that is weighing out before you cube out.
Weighing out before you cube out. Okay.
Yeah. So when a truck hits its maximum allowable weight, the loaders just have to close the doors and send it off. It doesn't matter how much empty space is left inside. They're forced to just leave all that perfectly good payload capacity sitting behind on the dock.
Man. And I guess that seems like maybe a minor hiccup on like a random Tuesday, but compounding that wasted capacity across 10,000 shipments a year.
It's devastating. You are bleeding massive amounts of capital in entirely avoidable freight spend. I mean, you're paying for a full truck, but maybe you're only using 80% of it.
It makes you think of like packing a suitcase for a flight. You have that really strict airline limit of 50 pounds.
Oh, yeah, the dreaded scale at the counter.
Exactly. So you start throwing in the heavy stuff, your thick winter boots, a couple of heavy jackets, some hardcover books. You drop the bag on the scale and you're at 49.9 pounds. But then you look inside the suitcase and half of it is still just empty air. Like you have plenty of physical room for all your t-shirts, but you can't put them in because you'll get hit with a massive overweight fee.
That is a perfect analogy.
But wait, if we follow that logic, why wouldn't a company just mix and match better? Like, put in a few heavy boots and then fill the rest of the empty space with the lightweight t-shirts.
What's fascinating here is that the math of mixing and matching at an industrial scale is just incredibly complex. But the payoff for getting it right is massive. It unlocks what we call free capacity.
Free capacity?
Yeah, let me give you an example from the case studies. Consider a totally different scenario. Regular Coke versus Diet Coke.
Wait, really? Regular and Diet Coke come in the exact same aluminum cans. Are you telling me there's a logistical difference between shipping the two?
Oh, a huge one. A pallet of regular Coke is significantly heavier than a pallet of Diet Coke.
Because of the sugar.
Exactly. Regular Coke is packed with sugar, and sugar has substantial physical mass. Diet Coke uses artificial sweeteners, which, weigh practically nothing in comparison.
Wow, I never thought about that.
Right. So if a beverage company ships one entire truckload of just regular Coke, that truck weighs out very quickly, leaving a ton of empty space.
Okay, and the Diet Coke.
If they ship a second truckload of just Diet Coke, that truck cubes out, meaning it fills up the physical space long before it hits the legal weight limit.
So both trucks are inefficient, just in different ways.
Exactly. Between those two separate shipments, you are wasting about 2,000 pounds of total weight capacity.
2,000 pounds of wasted highway capacity just because of the sugar content in the liquid.
It's simply because of the sugar.
Yeah.
But if you use mathematical optimization to mix the two products perfectly across both trailers, distributing the heavy Coke and the lighter Diet Coke precisely in each tack, you completely manipulate the average density of the loads.
Oh, I see.
By doing that, you mathematically unlock enough previously wasted capacity to fit an entire extra pallet of product onto the delivery.
So you get an extra pallet for free.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
You ship an extra pallet for free without paying for another truck simply by solving that combinatorial math puzzle of the weight distribution.
That is wild. But, I mean, if it's just a matter of balancing heavy and light, why wasn't Riviana, or really any other major company, just running that math on a basic spreadsheet?
It seems like they should be able to, right?
Yeah. You just mix a pallet of the 20-pound rice bags with a pallet of the single-serve cups, hit the exact target weight, and send it out the door. It doesn't sound like you need advanced AI for that.
Well, the problem is that the law doesn't just care about the total gross weight of the suitcase. The law cares intensely about exactly where the heavy boots and the light T-shirts are placed inside it.
Where they sit inside the truck.
Yes, and this introduces the absolute nightmare of axle weight distribution. In North America, you have a gross vehicle weight limit, which is typically 80,000 pounds. But you also have these strict, heavily enforced limits on what each individual set of axles can physically bear on the asphalt.
Oh, right, the axles themselves.
Yeah, usually that's capped at 34,000 pounds on the tandem axles. But the rules aren't uniform. They change drastically depending on which state borders you're driving across.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because suddenly, this isn't just a math problem, it's a legal and geographical one. The sources we looked at highlight a very specific, notoriously difficult piece of legislation.
The California Kingpin Law.
Yes, the California Kingpin Law, which is tied directly to the California Bridge formula.
Right. California has incredibly stringent regulations. They're designed to protect its bridges and its highway infrastructure from excessive wear and tear.
Makes sense.
Their law actually stipulates that the rearmost axle of the truck trailer cannot be more than 40 feet from the kingpin.
And for anyone who doesn't know, the kingpin is?
The kingpin is that heavy steel pivot point at the front of the trailer, where it actually locks into the truck's cab.
Okay, so if you're a driver pulling a standard 53-foot trailer into California, the law forces you to physically slide your rear wheels way forward, right? Like underneath the belly of the trailer, rather than leaving them all the way at the back bumper.
Exactly. You physically slide the axles, and it completely shifts the geometry of the vehicle.
It really makes me think of a playground seesaw. Like if you move the fulcrum, the pivot point in the middle, you drastically alter how the weight balances on either end.
Yes, that's exactly what happens.
So if those axles are forced forward to comply with California law, any cargo weight you've placed at the very back of the trailer is going to leverage heavily against those rear wheels. You are suddenly bearing down massive disproportionate pressure on that rear tandem.
Which gets you a massive fine at the weigh station.
Right. But let me push back here for a second. If the physics shift that aggressively just by crossing a state line, and the fines for being overweight on an axle are that steep, wouldn't it just be infinitely easier for the warehouse to underload the truck and play it safe? Like, why risk thousands in fines to squeeze in one more pallet of rice?
This raises an important question because playing it safe is exactly what the logistics industry was doing for decades. And it was just a quiet financial disaster.
Really? Just from underloading?
Yeah. To avoid those steep weigh station fines,
Yep.
and to avoid the absolute nightmare of having a truck impounded or forced to turn around and repack.
Yeah.
Plus preventing products from literally crushing each other under uneven loads.
Right, the crushed boxes.
Warehouse managers were artificially dropping their target load weights by 10%.
Wait, 10% across the board? They were just leaving that space empty on purpose?
Basically, yeah. They essentially threw their hands up and said, you know, we don't have the computing power to know exactly how this load will behave when those axles slide forward in California. So let's just leave 10% of the truck completely empty to guarantee we stay under the legal limit.
Wow.
But you have to view this through the lens of corporate economics. For a consumer packaged goods company, freight transportation makes up over 70% of their total supply chain costs.
70%.
It is the single biggest expense on the ledger. So arbitrarily wasting 10% of your payload capacity across 10,000 shipments. It is financially catastrophic. You're paying full market price to ship ghost pallets of empty air.
Unbelievable. So the math of combining weights is incredibly complex. The geographical laws force you to constantly shift the center of gravity, and the financial penalty for guessing wrong wipes out your profit margin.
Yep, it's a lose-lose.
So if they didn't have AI running these calculations 5 or 10 years ago, how was any warehouse surviving this? Like, who is actually doing the math on the dock?
Honestly, they were doing the math.
What do you mean?
They were relying on something the industry calls tribal knowledge.
Tribal knowledge. Okay.
Yeah, it was this incredibly fragile glue holding the entire North American logistics network together. Because calculating axle weight distribution on the fly was computationally impossible for a human, right? So companies relied entirely on the accumulated intuition of veteran warehouse workers.
So just like the guy who's been there forever.
Exactly. You'd have a forklift driver who had been loading trailers on the same dock for 20 years. And through 2 decades of painful trial and error, getting yelled at by drivers and penalized by managers, this person had internalized exactly how to balance a mixed weight load of rice heading to California versus a load heading to Illinois.
Oh, man. So they didn't have an algorithm. They literally just felt it out in their gut based on experience.
Pretty much. And that intuition was highly respected. But as a corporate strategy, it is a massive liability.
Well, yeah, because what happens when that 20-year veteran retires? Or just takes a vacation? Or gets recruited by a competitor across town?
Exactly. That deeply specialized, untransferable knowledge just walks right out the warehouse doors. And then training a new hire to intuitively grasp these complex 3-dimensional loading patterns took weeks.
And during that time, everything slows down.
Productivity flatlined, trucks were loaded incorrectly, shipments got delayed, and those weigh station fines just started piling up all over again.
Okay, hold on. I want to play devil's advocate for a second here, because we hear a lot about how technology comes in and just ignores the realities of the physical world. Doesn't the guy who has been maneuvering pallets into a 53-foot tube for 20 years know the physical equipment better than some central software system?
It's a fair question.
Like, isn't it kind of arrogant to just ignore human intuition when it comes to the nuances of the warehouse stock?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the data actually proves that human intuition, even highly experienced intuition, is highly susceptible to being flat out wrong, especially when it becomes institutionalized as just, well, the way we've always done things.
Oh, so the veterans were getting it wrong too.
Yes. There's a perfect example of this in the industry data regarding refrigerated trailers, which they call reefers.
Right, reefers.
So for years, the tribal knowledge on docks everywhere was that reefer trailers maxed out at 40,000 or maybe 44,000 pounds of payload. That was just the accepted, unquestioned truth among the veterans.
I guess because the heavy refrigeration unit attached to the front of the trailer eats into the total gross weight, so your actual product payload has to be significantly lighter to stay legal.
That is exactly the logic everyone operated under. But when analysts actually audited the data systematically running over 150 different reefer trailers over commercial scales, the results showed that human intuition was completely artificially limiting the network.
Wait, really? They could carry more?
A lot more. 85% of those refrigerated trailers could carry substantially more weight than the tribal knowledge dictated. Some could carry well over 46,000 pounds safely and legally.
So by trusting the gut feeling of the dock veterans, these warehouses were chronically underloading vehicles for years, just burning cash on every single trip.
Exactly. Because at a certain point, the human brain just hits a wall. A human simply cannot calculate the physics of moments for 30 different pallets in real time.
Wait, physics of moments? That sounds like a question on an engineering final. What does that actually mean for a forklift driver trying to load a truck?
Okay, think about holding a heavy box of books.
Okay.
If you hold that box tightly against your chest, the weight is manageable. You can stand there for a while. But if you hold that exact same box with your arms locked straight out in front of you...
Oh, you're going to fall forward almost immediately?
Right. The actual physical weight of the box didn't change at all. But the distance of that weight from your center of gravity did. That rotational force is a moment.
Ah, I get it.
Now, imagine trying to calculate that exact shifting rotational force for 40 distinct pallets, all with different weights, inside a moving 53-foot box while anticipating exactly where the axles will be positioned 3 days from now in California.
Yeah. No, it is mathematically impossible for a human brain.
Totally impossible.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The complexity is just too deep. So, human intuition fails at scale, and relying on the tribal knowledge of one veteran worker is a massive operational risk. Which brings us right to the core problem at Riviana Foods and how they bridge this massive gap between the executives making the supply chain plans and the workers actually driving the forklifts.
Right.
And this is where Provision A software, Auto02, comes in to solve the puzzle.
Yes, Auto02 acts as the execution compass for the entire operation. It takes the theoretical plan from the corporate office and ensures it can actually be executed on the physical dock.
So how does it actually know what's going into the truck?
The software plugs directly into a company's central planning system, their ERP, and pulls what's called item master data. This means it instantly ingests the precise dimensions, the exact weight, and the unique physical stacking rules for every single product in the warehouse inventory.
And then it uses that data to run the math before a single pallet is even moved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't just guess, it relies on combinatorial mathematics. Because when you have 40 different pallets, the number of different ways you can arrange them inside that trailer is staggering. I mean, it's factorial math resulting in millions of possible permutations.
Millions. And the AI runs through those permutations in milliseconds.
Yes. It solves the entire load simultaneously. It checks the cubic space, the total gross weight, and that highly sensitive axle distribution across all 50 states in a single pass.
And it accounts for real-world physics, right? Like, it knows you don't stack a 2,000-pound pallet of canned goods on top of fragile boxes of pasta.
Exactly. Or it knows to keep the pet food isolated from the absorbing paper products. It generates a mathematically perfect, legally compliant load plan.
Yeah.
But honestly, the real breakthrough isn't just the back-end algorithm.
What is it?
It's the translation of that math to the frontline worker. Auto02 doesn't just print out some dense spreadsheet of weights and hand it to a forklift driver.
That would be a nightmare to read on a forklift.
Right. Instead, it renders a 3D, fully visual, step-by-step diagram right on a screen mounted in the forklift.
Oh, wow. So it's exactly like a GPS for the warehouse dock.
Yes.
Like if you think about navigating a city 20 years ago, you had to memorize the map, you had to know the one-way streets, anticipate traffic. But now, anyone can navigate a complex city flawlessly because the GPS gives you turn-by-turn visual directions. The driver doesn't need to do the math, they just follow the colored blocks on the screen.
That's exactly how it works.
But let me ask you this. If the software is making all the decisions and just handing down turn-by-turn directions, are we kind of de-skilling the workforce? Like, are we turning skilled warehouse loaders into mindless drones just following a blue line?
It's a common worry, but it actually has the exact opposite effect. It massively empowers the workforce.
How so?
It removes the intense stress and liability of carrying a $50,000 compliance fine in their heads. Look at the concrete results from the Riviana Foods facility. By deploying this visual turn-by-turn guidance, they reduce their onboarding and training time by 75%.
75%. That is an incredible jump in efficiency.
It completely changes the hiring dynamics. A brand new forklift driver doesn't have to shadow a veteran for a month just to learn the arcane secrets of axle weights and bridge formulas. They can execute a flawless, mathematically optimized, damage-free load on their very first day simply by matching the pallets to the visual prompts on their screen.
So the institutional knowledge is finally embedded permanently in the software, rather than fluctuating with the turnover of the staff.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? We've solved the puzzle on the warehouse floor, eliminated the guesswork, and empowered the new hires. Let's look at the actual payoff, because the numbers coming out of Riviana's operations are huge. By utilizing Auto02 to confidently pack those trucks to the absolute legal limit without fear of waste station penalties, Riviana recovered over $1 million in freight savings per lane in their Memphis operations alone.
$1 million per lane. And perhaps even more impressively, they achieved a full return on their software investment within just 90 days of deployment.
90 days.
90 days. In the world of enterprise software, where rollouts can drag on for years before showing a dime of profit, a 90-day return is almost unheard of. It starkly illuminates just how much raw capital was bleeding out of the company through those partially empty trucks.
Yeah, that is a massive win for the balance sheet. But let's zoom out even further here. Think about it. Every time you are stuck in gridlock traffic next to a convoy of 18-wheelers, you're breathing exhaust and dealing with congestion from trucks that might be hauling 20% empty space.
Yeah, we all are.
When a massive producer like Riviana optimizes their loads, what is the actual fallout for the rest of us?
Well, it reveals a profound, actionable connection between corporate profits and environmental health. We constantly hear companies talking about their ESG goals, environmental, social, and governance,
Right, but it usually feels like PR.
because progress is often painfully slow. Executives usually view sustainability initiatives as pure cost centers. But load optimization proves that environmental impact happens much faster and scales much more aggressively when it is intrinsically tied to recovering millions of dollars.
Because wasting space inside a truck isn't just a financial loss, it generates invisible emissions.
Precisely. If a diesel truck drives 500 miles down the interstate only 80% full, that
Hmm.
20% of empty air is still burning fossil fuels. It is still generating carbon.
It's just wasted burn.
Right. In logistics, they measure things like deadhead miles, which is when a truck is forced to drive completely empty to its next pickup location, and wasted payload capacity as massive drivers of Scope 3 emissions.
Scope 3 being.
Rather than direct emissions from a smokestack, these are the massive indirect carbon footprints generated across a company's entire supply chain.
And optimizing the load attacks those indirect emissions right at the source. You aren't inventing a new fuel, you're just changing the math.
Exactly. By mathematically perfecting the load, Auto O2 delivers a 5 to 10% reduction in overall freight costs because it literally eliminates the need to book partial truckloads.
Right.
You are transporting the exact same volume of consumer goods, but requiring significantly fewer heavy vehicles to do it. The data shows that in 2023 alone, this specific optimization software helped remove 88,000 unnecessary truck journeys from the road network.
88,000 full truck journeys.
Go on.
Completely wiped off the map. I mean, that means millions of gallons of diesel not burned, massive reductions in highway traffic congestion, and a huge drop in the physical wear and tear on our public infrastructure.
And the company simultaneously increased their profit margins by doing it.
It genuinely seems like one of those rare, perfect win-wins where aggressive capitalism perfectly aligns with climate action.
It really does. It proves that making a massive dent in corporate emissions doesn't require waiting decades for the electric trucking grid to be built out or inventing some magical new fuel source.
Huh.
You can drastically reduce your carbon footprint today simply by applying intelligent math to ensure you aren't paying to transport empty air.
It's an incredible operational journey when you step back and look at the whole picture. We started with the physical paradox of the weight puzzle. The fact that heavy bags of rice were causing trucks to max out their axles while leaving the physical trailers half empty.
Right.
We explored the logistical headache of the California Kingpin Law, which forced warehouse managers into a high-stakes game of seesaw, resulting in a catastrophic 10% waste in capacity just out of sheer caution. We saw how relying on the fragile tribal knowledge of dock veterans created bottlenecks and how combinatorial math finally replaced that human guesswork with instantaneous certainty. And ultimately, that shift saved Riviana millions, slashed training times by 75%, and pulled thousands of carbon-emitting trucks off our highways.
It's a powerful reminder that the most impactful technological revolutions don't always take the form of flashy consumer apps in Silicon Valley. Sometimes they happen quietly on a loading dock in Memphis, optimizing the rigid physical constraints of our world to the exact inch and pound.
I love that. And that leads me to one final mind-expanding thought for you to chew on. We've spent this entire deep dive discussing how algorithms are perfectly optimizing the placement of pallets inside the confines of a trailer. But what happens when we take that exact same logic and apply it backward to the product itself? We know a highway trailer has exactly 530 inches of interior length to play with. Could we see a near future where the very shape of your cereal box or the exact dimensions of your 20-pound bag of rice isn't designed by a creative marketing team trying to catch your eye on the grocery store shelf, but by an AI algorithm?
Oh, wow. That was an interesting thought.
Right. An AI whose sole relentless purpose is to design a geometric package that perfectly mathematically exploits every single millimeter of that 52-foot 6-inch interior of a highway truck. Imagine a world where the physical shape of absolutely everything you buy was dictated by the perfect math of the supply chain. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Next time you pack a suitcase, remember, don't pay to fly your empty air across the country. Keep questioning the hidden systems that make our world run.